Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Average Superstar TV. I'm your host, Lauren Lepre. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. And we have a new show every Monday morning. And this week, we're back in the film world. We're in the classic land of Tromaville. I am very thrilled to have this guest on. This is I would definitely say this is a film that led me into the horror movie world. I was very intrigued when I saw this. I was also not allowed to see a film like this when I was younger. So basically to say when I was like 8 or 9 years old, when this movie came out, it led me down that dark path to where I am now, which isn't a dark path at all. But with that, we all know him as Melvin from the TOXIC AVENGER. Please welcome Mark Torgl.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Yes, I was the original Melvin in the very first TOXIC AVENGER, and was my claim to fame and has gone on to historical nature. So, I've been enjoying that cult lifestyle ever since. And I'm glad we got to corrupt you as a young child.
That no good Lloyd Kaufman. All right, so Mark, let's hit rewind button. Just kind of curiosity, because I always hear out of the Troma people, like some people want to be in film and some people just somehow want to be in a movie. So I'm just kind of curious, did you have a thing for acting? Like, was that something you wanted to do, or did one thing lead to another and you found yourself in film?
I had an interesting introduction to being an actor. I was going to NYU Film School at the time, and Troma put up a notice on our job board to come and work on a real film, a real feature film, not to get paid, but to get the experience. And I went down to meet with Lloyd and Michael Hers, and they interviewed me. And it was actually for a film the year before TOXIC AVENGER. It was a film called The First Turn On. And Lloyd was like, "Oh, you go to NYU. Well, what do you want to do on this film?" And I was like, "Well, I'd kind of like to be the script supervisor so I could work right with the director." And it's like, "Great, done. You can be the script supervisor. What else do you want to do?" And I was like, "I like writing." He goes, "Great, you could write some additional scenes. What else do you want to do?" I mean, I could have been the whole crew because he was just letting me do whatever I wanted. So we went on to make this movie, The First Turn On, and how I ended up in it. There was an actor that had a very big role, actually, that did not show up. It was the camp counselor's boyfriend that had several scenes, and Lloyd was like, "Mark, you do it." And and I did it, and it was another like over the top nerdy crazy character, and they liked the way I did it so much. When they were making TOXIC AVENGER the next year, they called me up and said, "Listen, we've been interviewing a bunch of kids, and what we really want is what you did last year. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And so I became like a Troma on the Troma team from that point on, and I've done many other things with them.
That's incredible. To back up on a few action beats there, when you were going when you saw that ad for the movie, were you trying to do like just be in film period? Were you trying to be a director? Like how what was your initial goal before you got plucked by the Troma universe?
Director, just make my own films. And at NYU we made over the 3 years 4 films. And that was kind of, the journey I was on. And that didn't end either. I mean, the acting thing has become almost a hobby. I work in Hollywood now as a TV editor, And I've been doing that for many years, and that's what pays the bills. And then when my fans call me up to say, "Hey, I'm making a movie. I know you from Facebook. You want to be in my movie?" I do it, And I think in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been in like 9 or 10 little films, mostly as cameos, and I made my own film too a few years back called Toxic Tutu, which is the almost true story of whatever became of Melvin the Mop Boy from the Toxic Avenger. And we had a lot of fun doing that, and that's streaming now too.
So, what outlet? Out of curiosity, I'm just going to go. Would it be on Tubi where everything else is?
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. I will definitely check that out.
It's on a couple of things. I think it's also on Apple. But yeah, you could just Google it and see it.
That's more out of curiosity. So Lloyd Kaufman came from the almighty Rocky film. So were you kind of like? I'm just kind of curious because I'm a little kid back then, and I wasn't a little like town of like 8,000. But like, what is it like meeting him? Were you expecting kind of like? Did you know what you were getting into, like this Troma universe? Or did you kind of think like, oh, the guy's associated with Rocky. This is an A-list guy going to make another A-list movie, and then you walk into this?
I actually didn't know what I was getting into at the time because they were pretty new. They'd only made a few films. And before they were making the horror films, it was all like teenage sex comedies. And I think when I finally met with them, I saw one or two. I think there was one called Squeeze Play, one called Waitress. And I knew they were low budget, and they have, they're not shy in announcing that because hardly anyone gets paid. And again, they were in New York. They were in Hell's Kitchen. I went down to their building, and I knew quickly what I was getting into, especially when we started making the movies. And there were a lot of kids like camped out in the building that were working for them. They had a family that lived up on the top floor of their building. They were renters that Troma was the landlord for, and nobody makes a movie like Troma, and you learn what that is really quickly because when you're on set, everybody is pretty young and or knows why they're there, and it's just to get the job done and not to make money. It's just, for the art of it, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I can remember not long ago the return to Nukem High. So seeing behind the scenes of that looks like the same exact thing going on 40 years later. People sleeping on top of each other.
Exactly. Well, I'm actually in Return to Nukem High Part 2. And I went to New York to do it, and they're now in Queens. They're now based in Queens, the Troma building. And I was on the floor in the basement of the Troma building for an hour or two while they were filming my scene where I get impaled by a monster with a mop. Nothing changed. Nothing seemed any different. A lot of kids working there, and it's just a lot of people do it just for the experience.
So when you first met Lloyd, Uncle Lloyd, is that your first conversation with him about like, oh, you want to be script supervisor? Sure. Like anything you want is yours. Was that basically your first conversation with him?
Yeah. And, it was like, I should have said, oh, can I direct it? Because he was just letting me do whatever I wanted. Of course, they didn't pay anybody, so they let anyone do what they wanted.
Gotcha. How was Michael Hertz? Because he's kind of when you say Troma, obviously Lloyd's, the main face of it. You don't see Michael around anymore. I'm just kind of curious because you heard his name a lot back then too. So what was he like?
He was, definitely the quieter one. He does a lot of the legal stuff at Troma. I think there are always people trying to sue them. He's a lawyer, actually. But he was very involved in those first two films that I worked on, behind the camera and, helping Lloyd direct. And, Lloyd was in the Directors Guild, so he couldn't even have his name as director on a, no budget film. and I forgot who got the director's credit, but it was just a made up name, I believe, at the time.
Not uncommon still.
Right,
yeah.
right. But yeah, he was more involved in those early films, and then he kind of Michael took a kind of a backstage position and let Lloyd sort of take over as far as being the face of Troma and the crazy face of Troma.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. So I'm curious now, when you're making this movie, when you're actually making the Toxic Avenger, like, and they bring you back, do you have any like feeling like we might have something here, or is this just another day at Troma and you had no idea what was coming?
I think when we were making Toxic Avenger, I was thinking this is either going to be like the worst movie ever made, or it's going to be a huge cult film. And when it came out, it was in the theaters, in a couple theaters. It lasted like a week, and then it started playing at midnight movies, especially the Greenwich Village. The Bleecker Street Cinema started playing it in New York every Saturday night at midnight, and it started getting a big word of mouth, and it spread from that. And other theaters that did these midnight movies picked it up, and it grew and grew until it became, a mini cult movie. Never got to like Rocky Horror success, but
yeah,
a hell of a lot of people know about it. And especially when I go to conventions and make appearances at conventions, like everybody there knows about it. It's really cool. I even that first year at the Bleecker Street, I made a personal appearance at one of the screenings, and I got up in front of the crowd, and I was trying to do some stand-up comedy, and I was really bad at it, but the crowd loved me anyway. I had a mop, and I had a tutu, and it was really, really fun. And I think that's when I realized this was really going to turn into something.
That's awesome. So when the movie's being filmed, I guess the answer is yeah, you knew, but I'm just kind of curious from the previous film that you filmed with Lloyd there, like the way the actors delivered their lines, that over the top, like like they're not even trying to be A-list. Was that like Lloyd just go out and do it whatever way you see, or was he like, no, don't try to act, like really try to
Lloyd definitely encouraged that over the top acting, and he would work with the actors, and he'd be like, give it to me more, get bigger, get crazier, and he'd have, if an actor was kind of shy, he would just get pummeled by Lloyd until this guy was like screaming or crying or over the top in his part. It was definitely encouraged. That's like the Troma style.
Your part in Bozo, like Jesus, I mean, wow, like just like they're to me they're timeless because they're instant smiles when you see the characters. Like it's just. Did you know what you were doing? Did you like as far as like was everybody on set laughing after every cut, or like what? Did you know that you were hitting it out of the ballpark?
Oh, I think we had that feeling, yeah. Now the other interesting thing about that movie is I was also the script supervisor. So besides being the actor, because when they asked me if I wanted to do it, I was like, oh yeah, can I be the script supervisor as well? So I got to see the whole movie being made, not just my parts. And I realized, this was really special. It was something really different, not a typical horror film, not a typical comedy. It was, like a combination. And that's when I kind of thought, and I think everyone really thought, whatever we were making, it was really unique, and it did turn out to be really unique.
It definitely did, and I was kind of curious. So when the momentum, you said it gets released for a week and nothing super happens, and then the ball starts rolling. So I could tell you, a kid who's living outside of Scranton, like, the mom and pop video stores, they were like everywhere at that time. And I used to always get the big pop-ups from the store. Like I got Karate Kid too. Like whenever they were done with them, they would pass it on. And I remember coming in one day and I saw that the Toxic Avenger pop up, which was probably the size of Andre the Giant compared to me. And I was frozen. And they go, "Do you want that?" And I'm just staring. I'm like, I don't know what that is. But there's an Arnold Schwarzenegger Raw Deal one right next to it. It's Arnold. And I'm like, that's a terrible movie now if I could go back. But I was like, no, I'd rather Arnold. But I kept looking back at it like, I'm drawn to this. I'm drawn to this. And, you know, I'm 8. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. But
that's too bad you didn't get it.
Yeah, I know. And it was better like the original and everything. But what I'm trying to get at is, to me, that Nuke 'Em High, they were just everyday films on the shelf, like equals, basically, with Friday the 13th or anything else. Like, and I remember seeing, like, I always read the boxes. So the reviews for the Toxic Avenger and Nuke 'Em High, you were getting like grade A reviews from real, you know, at the time, everyone that was important. So, I mean, basically what I'm saying is, like, did you guys feel you were equal? Because to me, I felt you were. I mean, I'm also an 8-year-old kid, but
I didn't really realize that Toxic Avenger or any Troma film got really A reviews, because they've always been the outcast in the film world. And I think, you know, that's something that Lloyd has talked about often, that they've never really been accepted in Hollywood or in the film world. So I'm not sure that I know of those A reviews. I know I did a couple of interviews. I did one for Fangoria at the time. And then I think there was a New Jersey newspaper I did an interview with, and they seemed to like it. You know, they wanted me they wanted to interview me. So it was the more obscure media that I think really liked it. And of course, you know, the big thing was that the fans really learned about it, and word of mouth is how it became the cult film that it is.
So when the whole thing's grooving, like with the next year, the year after, I'm just kind of curious, were people noticing you? Like when you would walk down the street, like, did you kind of know, like, you know, were you being stopped? Like, are you Melvin? Did you get that a lot?
Occasionally, not a lot, but it did happen. And it was always kind of a thrill. But yeah, I never was the one that everybody recognized. So in a way, that was kind of cool, because I just led my, you know, normal existence. But every once in a while, someone would like come up to me in like a coffee shop and go, Are you Melvin? Are you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Can you sign something?" You know, it's like the real fans,
Yeah,
recognize me.
Having to sign napkins was probably the only thing.
And dollar bills and stuff.
That's good. So once that's on fire, I'm just kind of curious, like, you know, as yourself, like, were you looking at like that was this cool era of my life, like, hey, or were you like, hey, I'm going to try to act with A-list and give that a shot, or were you just kind of content with what you had?
While I was in New York, I did get an agent that got me into a couple of like commercial endeavors. But I moved to Los Angeles shortly after that, and started working in post-production, which has, you know, been really lucrative for me, you know, throughout my career. But, you know, when Troma made Toxic Avenger 2, they wanted me to be in it. And I was already in Los Angeles. And I said, well, you know, can you pay me anything for this one? And like, oh, no, that's not the Troma way. But I said, well, send me the script and let me look at it. And they sent the script, and I didn't think it was very good. And so I passed on it. And Lloyd wrote a book, Everything I Know About Filmmaking I Learned from the
Toxic Avenger. Yeah.
And in that book, he said the biggest mistake he ever made was not giving Mark Torgl the $50 he asked for to be a Toxic Avenger 2.
But I completely understand. You're living in a very expensive city, and like, yeah, like in the end, I always say that about acts. Like, a lot of us actors have to work for free, and then you're like, at the end of the month, when mortgage or the rent comes in. You know, it's just like you can't just be like, well, they're my buddy and they didn't want to pay me. Like it's not how the world works.
Yeah. Well, and they made that movie and they turned it into 2 movies.
Yes.
So it was actually Toxic Avenger 2 and 3. And then when they made Toxic Avenger 4, they called me up again and I said, yeah, I'll do it, just for the fun of it. They flew me down there and they put me up in a hotel. And I did, the evil Melvin role. And that kind of got me back involved with Troma again.
What? Just out curious, out of your opinion, because you already said you didn't think the script for the second one was good. Like to me, it's like Toxic, and then Toxic 4 is the real sequel. Like those 2 and 3. Like, what was your thoughts on them? Because it just seemed to kind of go. I don't know. I mean, it was gone.
Yeah, I saw 2, and didn't think. Even Lloyd says those were mistakes. And until Citizen Toxic number 4 came around, then he was happy about that one. Of course, maybe it was just because I was in it.
Yeah, true. And it was great because when I was saying earlier about like I just felt you guys were equal. I just remember always seeing Troma at like USA Up All Night. They used to do it in a row, and there'd be Ron DeShear, sitting there with Uncle Lloyd and stuff. So I always knew Troma was like the next peer down, but I always felt that, at least when I first started watching the Troma movies, that Nuke 'Em High and Toxic Avenger were equal with everything else, and then the fall off, But I don't know if that was Lloyd's intention. If we don't want to be a part of you anyway, or what. But
no, especially around Halloween, they start playing these movies over and over again, and the recognition is, there's the Troma movie. So be on the lookout. I'm sure Toxic Avenger is going to be playing all over the place.
Yeah, and I believe that's on the restart button. Didn't someone buy the rights to the Toxic Avenger?
Legendary Films. Peter Dinklage plays Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, and that's a Jersey guy.
Oh, is he from Jersey?
Yeah, he is. He's a Jersey boy, so I think it's kind of appropriate. I don't know. I just think Peter's like you were a kid. It's supposed to be a mop boy at a gym. So is he just a loser older guy at a gym? I don't know how they're going to do it. But
I don't. Well, it's all done, but it hasn't been released yet. Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing what they did with that. Yeah. And Lloyd was a producer on it, and I think mostly as a name producer. I don't know how involved he really was.
I think that's like what the John Carpenter doing, putting his name on the last couple Halloween films, which I don't like at all. But I just think that fans want to hear that, like it was okay to go forward. But did you get any backlash for being a part of the Troma universe? Like, did people like say, "Oh my God, what are they doing? How could you be a part of that?" Like, did you ever get anybody like really up in your face on that sort of thing, especially back then?
Not extremely. I mean, there were like film scholars that would say, when they knew who I was, they were like, "Yeah, well, the film world doesn't really respect what Troma does. They don't teach it at college." This one guy was a film professor, and that was one topic they stayed away from was Troma.
I guess if you don't speak of Troma, it'll just go away, right? Yeah, right.
It'll never go away. They've got a new one, Shakespeare Shitstorm.
Yes.
And that actually is getting good reviews.
I saw that at the Mahoney Drive-In.
Oh, you did? I haven't seen it yet. Did you like it?
Yeah, but I liked it. I mean, it's definitely Troma. You know what you're watching, but I thought he went in a different creative direction with it. Like it's something different, So it's cool.
Yeah, I need to see that.
Yeah, definitely give that a whirl. But and I know, you said you're a film editor, you're in LA and everything now, but you have another film coming out now that you're a part. Well, not yours, but that you're acting in recently, called Once in the Future Smash.
The Once in Future Smash, yeah. It just played at a film festival in London and got really good reviews. So hasn't come out yet here, but there's a premiere at the Chinese Theater in just a couple of weeks. And I'm really excited about that. I actually play myself. It's like a pseudo documentary, a made up, documentary. But it's got a very clever premise where there was supposedly a film made back in the 70s about these football players, and they went around and like smashed people's heads in and ate them or something like that. And there were two actors that played the same character, and so that's now they're kind of fighting over who the real Smash is in this documentary. And I mean, I'm excited about it because it just seemed like a really cool idea to me. I don't know. Do you know who James Balsamo is?
I think we're friends on Facebook, but we don't chat a lot. I believe I am.
He makes about 20 films a year, and they're all like in the horror realm. And he lives here in Hollywood. And I got closer to him when he called me to ask me to be in one of his films, and now I'm part of his crew. So whenever he makes a new film, I usually end up in it. And it's things like that that are really fun. Especially I just have to drive like a couple miles to be in this film.
Even you can't get any more convenient with that. They don't got to pay you gas money. That's great. What would you say? We're getting ready to wrap this up here. What would you say to anybody? Because I know back in the day, it was a lot harder to make a film. What do you suggest for any young filmmakers getting up, that are going to try to hop in this business? What advice could you give them?
Well, you could always, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area, you could always seek out Troma because they will let you help them out, as like an intern or for no pay. But, the thing now, it's so easy to make your own film. You can actually make a film on an iPhone. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't do that back in the 80s. You had to have a real camera, and a real sound department. And if you've got clever ideas and you've got some talented friends, you can start off by making short films. And I'm a part of a horror short film like festival that people submit their films to this place. And then I'm a judge, I pick out my favorite 10 films out of all of them. And there are venues like that will accept your short films. And, and then if you have a bigger idea, you can make it into a bigger film. But I think it's easiest to start small and work on your master script. And just, you can do it so easily with an iPhone. That your iPhone is more powerful than a 16 millimeter camera back in the 80s, which is just crazy.
It is. It's crazy what they could do. Yeah. And I would also guess why I have you here and what you do basically full time. For as far as editing goes, do you have a preferred editing a movie goes? What is your preferred software?
I've used them all. I started on Avid, which that's probably my preferred, but it seems like more and more the production companies are moving toward Premiere, and that's what I've been working on lately. I've also done Final Cut. They're all basically similar with just little differences so that they're not infringing on each other's copyrights.
Yeah.
And you just have to figure out, this is what they mean by, a flop. It's actually a flip, or whatever. But yeah, editing is really interesting for me because it's totally opposite of being an actor where I'm surrounded by cast and crew and recognition, and the same with conventions. When I'm at conventions, everyone, knows me. But when I'm editing, I'm pretty much in a dark little bay all by myself. It's a different world, But
and you can edit anytime you want, 24 hours a day. If you can't sleep at night, you can just go fire the computer up and get right to it.
Yeah, especially now. I'm working for a company called Entertainment Studios, and I'm doing it out of my house. So, you know, it makes it very convenient. Kind of when the pandemic hit is when we started working out of our houses. And, you know, even it's so easy to transfer cuts over the internet. You know, you don't need the producer sitting there behind your back. You know, you can send it to them.
Yep.
And you know, that makes things real easy. The technology has just gotten so that you can do it anywhere. You can move to Hawaii and do it, you know.
Yep. Amazing world we live in these days. Mark, thank you so much for popping by. I would like to just give you the floor. Is there anything you want to plug, or anyone who, you know, how to get a hold of you? The floor is yours.
You can reach me on Facebook, Mark Torgl on Facebook, or Melvin Ferd on Facebook. I'm available for all you aspiring filmmakers, you know, that want to have an icon in your movie. There's one other movie that I'm excited about. It's called The Macabre, and that's finished, and it's going to be streaming also. And so I have a really nice role in that too. So be on the lookout for The Macabre and the Once and Future Smash, or just check me out on IMDb and you can see the other 10 movies that I've been in the last few years. And Toxic Tutu, my movie, you know.
Yes, I'm going to go check that out. You said that's on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
All right, that's going to be one of my plans for today. But all right, Mark, thank you so much for popping by. I will thank this audience for taking the time once again to stop by. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. New show drops every Monday morning. And with that, I will say that the party is over.
Thanks, Lauren.